PK in the universe, here to talk about Skyward Sword. Today it was announced that Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, a very polarizing game on the Nintendo Wii, of course, and was one of the last first-party Wii games. There's talk that it might come to the Nintendo Switch because there was a placeholder, I guess, for it in the UK or something. Do we need to talk about this? I mean, this has gotten talked about a lot. It's a controversial, polarizing game. It's one of the worst selling Zelda games, and that's probably because of the time it came out. It sold like 3.67 million units, and it got a second life on the Wii U. In fact, it currently, at the time of this recording, goes for $20 on the Wii U. And used versions of the game go from $25 to $40 on price, according to price charting, but I've seen it go lower. I mean, you could probably find it lower if you were looking really hard. What can I say about Skyward Sword? I haven't played a lot of it. I've gotten through the intro of it. Some people say they love Skyward Sword, that they love the motion controls, and a lot of people have said that they don't know how you would even make this game without motion controls because the entire premise of the game is built around the motion controls. I can almost see how you would do this with the Switch Joy-Cons, but I'm not sure how you do it with the Switch Lite, so that'd be really interesting how they would approach that. Whether it comes out or not, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. I have mixed feelings. I can see people who are really passionate about it wanting this, and if it comes out, an HD version of this, and they've really done some real work to it, I totally could see buying it. I mean, after all, I did buy the Link's Awakening remake, but Link's Awakening is like my favorite Zelda game of all time, so of course I was going to buy it. But I've always bought all the HD Zeldas, so yeah, I think I would definitely pick this up. As the thing about me with games, I'm not a huge fan of double dipping most of the time, but when it comes to Zelda, I'm much more open to the idea of double dipping if there's enough of differences. But yeah, I think there's a kind of an irony though, the people who say, oftentimes with like ports going to the Switch, their argument is they want as many people to play this as possible, but then at the same time, there's people who say that and are totally okay with games getting delisted. Now, Pikmin 3, I mentioned recently in a video, got delisted. What if they do this with Skyward Sword? I mean, why not? It's a first-party Nintendo IP. It's a $20 game, just like Pikmin 3 was. So, if they delisted it, would you care? Would you care if they had had Scott Pilgrim and delisted it? See, it's different when it's a game people really care about, and I think that's something that's worth mentioning about this conversation is delisting games on the Wii U eShop is kind of silly, and I don't think it serves any purpose, but I think I made a joke about this on Twitter too, and people had mixed reactions about that joke. I made a joke, I bet 1999 that Skyward Sword will get delisted the minute it hits the Switch. Whether it really will or not, I don't know, but because, after all, on the Link's Awakening on 3DS obviously didn't get delisted from the eShop, but then again, the remake and the original version are radically different. Now, if Skyward Sword HD and Skyward Sword Standard Edition are really similar, I could see Nintendo pulling a Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze or a Pikmin 3. I totally could see that. I mean, you could make the argument, well, Xenoblade Chronicles and Resident Evil 4 on Wii are still there. Yeah, and that's true. I mean, and technically Xenoblade Chronicles is developed, but all the Xenoblade games are developed by Monolith. And Monolith is not owned by Nintendo. They are their own developer, but Nintendo publishes all the games. Those games are exclusive to Nintendo. So are they a Nintendo first-party IP? I mean, they're an exclusive Nintendo game. And obviously, Resident Evil 4 on the Wii is a standard edition game where, even though the Wii version is like a definitive edition in a way because of just all the controls you can use, but the Switch version is based on the HD version, so they're different games. So it kind of makes sense that those wouldn't be necessary, since they're so very different, that they wouldn't be, Nintendo isn't worried about the competition, plus Nintendo doesn't actually own those completely, so I see why those would not be removed from the eShop, but I could totally see Nintendo pulling a Pikmin 3 or a Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, and quietly removing it from the eShop. And yeah, I'm a big fan of not delisting games on, eShops and PlayStation networks and Xbox Live stores and things like that. So, yeah. So, what are your guys' thoughts? You guys going to pick up Skyward Sword? Is this a game you love or hate? I'm very in the middle on this one, personally, just because I've not played enough of it to really have a strong assessment of this game. But I think I would pick up the HD version of this, especially if it's just worth my while and they've really done a lot of work to make it, HD-ish enough or whatever. I don't know. It could be interesting, especially how they would do the Joy-Cons, or if they would, That's another thing. Do you guys like motion controls with your Zelda games? Comment below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and stay awesome in this universe. Later.